What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the quartering, and I can't emphasize enough that I want more resources put into stopping and punishing people that choose to use local SWAT teams to win internet arguments, as we've now lost another person to one of these moronic events. If you've been following this channel for a while, you know that I've constantly spoken out against this because it is absolutely heinous that it continues to be a problem. And yesterday, it was reported, late yesterday, that a 60-year-old man lost her life over a swatting incident. Why was he swatted? Because people wanted his Twitter handle. That's what I understand. That's how I understand this. People wanted his Twitter handle, so they swatted him. This isn't the first time, too. Just recently, this back in late 2019, Ohio gamer sentenced 15 months for swatting in an incident that someone lost their life. It should be 20 years. 15 months, not enough. It should be at minimum 20 years. You're not only putting that person's life at risk, okay, but you're also putting law enforcement's lives at risk. Let's say you're somebody who is a big 2A person, right? Like myself. You're minding your own business, playing John Madden football in the middle of the night, and people burst into the door. I mean, you're putting not only the person you're calling's life at risk, anybody else in that house at risk, plus the officers there. This should be automatic 20 years, period. It's the only way you're going to get these idiots to stop it. And you have to start catching more of them. This kid, Casey Viner, 19, of Ohio, he made a bogus emergency call that resulted in a Kansas City man not making the situation, not surviving it. And it was over $1.50. He was upset about a $1.50 bet while Call of Duty Online was his opponent, the then 19-year-old Shane said. He recruited Tyler Arberis to SWAT this person in Wichita, but the address they used was old, leading PD to a 28-year-old Andrew Fitch who wasn't even involved in it. And that guy lost his life. I mean, it's absolutely insane. Here we have finally new details coming out. The 60-year-old man had a heart attack after being swatted over his Twitter handle. In April 2020, a 60-year-old man had SWAT sent to him, where perpetrators phoned U.S. forces with bogus information, hoping to incite an armed response at the other person's home. After surrendering to police after they surrounded his home, he suffered a heart attack. I mean, what did you expect? Now a new report has shed light onto the circumstances of the incident and the petty bogus reason behind it. Mr. Herring had been targeted by kids because of his Twitter handle at Tennessee, which was considered a valuable handle. He was apparently one of the many being targeted in this fashion. Herring's family explained that the incident to Alex Dennis, Mr. Herring's son, said it began with their neighbors called and said, "There are police everywhere, and they think a man has ended a woman and he's on your property. You got to take cover." He went outside armed because he heard someone was on his property, Karina Fitch said. He sees all these cops around him. They ask if he's Mark Herring. "Put your hands up." So he tosses his sidearm away to show he's not a threat and puts his hand up. He then suffered a heart attack and died. He was literally scared to death. Like, until there are significantly more tough penalties on this and the ability to track it back, the stuff is going to continue to happen. Months later, the family learned about Shane Sonderman, the kid who had been targeting Mr. Herring and was responsible for it. He was from Tennessee, said Corinna Fitch. He was one that collected all of our information, my address, my sister's, my mom's, my mother's sister, and put it on a channel in Discord, which is a gaming chat forum. This is apparently an intimidation tactic to pressure Mr. Herring to give up the Tennessee username. Then a kid in the United Kingdom made a call to my dad's local PD. The kid in the UK is still not of age and thus cannot be identified or extradited. And that's a thing that a lot of people don't understand about these situations, is that a lot of these calls come from overseas. And not only does that make that more difficult to enforce the law and police, but it makes it less likely. I mean, over in the UK, they're worried about people tweeting out mean words on social media. They're not going to worry about some guy making a call to the treasonous United States. Now, Sonderman faces a maximum of 5 years in prison and $250,000 fine. That's not enough. 20 years minimum. I realize that some people might think that this is too harsh, but you have to understand the amount of, from my position, as I said earlier, you're talking about purposely. You're making that call knowing that there's going to be an altercation happening, knowing the high likelihood of that going wrong. This isn't like, I ding dong ditched somebody, and then they tripped and broke their hip when they were coming to the door. That's not like a known risk when you're ringing someone's doorbell or like unplugging their Christmas lights or pranking them. You know what I mean? But when you're sending SWAT, this is for one reason only, intimidation, and there is a high degree of things going wrong, and you're putting a dozen's people's lives at risk. You've not just changed that one person's life, you've done a ripple effect, and they need to pay for that. Mr. Herring was a target for his valuable Twitter handle, $3,000 or $4,000, like pennies compared to a life. I mean, this is so sad. And like, people, I don't think that there are many people on the internet that don't agree with me. But I think as a content creator or as someone who's like, got their information out there, it obviously hits harder to me. I've had, I'm on a first name basis with my local PD. I don't talk about it every time some moron thinks that they're being edgy calling them, because they know me and they call my cell phone when somebody calls them and they talk to me before anybody shows up at my house. Well, this has happened probably a half dozen times to me. They've never shown up once. They have my number. They call me, and then I want the other people investigated. The problem is, as far as I know, none of these people have actually faced any charges. These kids who do this stuff know what they're doing. They know what the potential risk and fallout is, and they do it anyway. Okay. This is not a meme. This is not a joke. This is not, I didn't foresee that coming. You're talking about, this is the second or third now in the last year person that's lost their life to this. This guy over $1.50. This other guy over their Twitter handle. Like, are you joking? I don't know what can really be done about this, especially when these calls always seem to be coming internationally. There was a couple of high-profile cases where the calls were actually recorded, but they were coming from like somebody in Poland or something like that using a VPN. And like, what is your little local PD office going to do? Not much, right? They don't have the resources or assets. So this stuff continues to happen. But we need to get our federal agencies. I suppose you're committing like some sort of international crime, right? When you're calling in overseas or, state to state, you're talking a federal level crime. How about instead of worrying about what people post on Facebook or social media, our FBI or our federal agencies take some time to figure this out, backtrack who did this, and, you know, bring them to justice. Otherwise, this is going to keep happening. And I'd be lying if I didn't, you know, have certain fears about that. That's why I have high quality 4K cameras on the outside of my house. That's why I have a sign on my door. You know, that's why, I mean, if we saw this with XQC from Twitch, he had been swatted like a half dozen times. Somebody broke into his house when they knew he was out of town. This stuff is unacceptable. And obviously, yeah, I take a little more, I'm a little more sensitive about it than maybe the average person, but you're talking about a 60-year-old man that lost his life because of his Twitter handle. Absolutely disgusting. Life in prison. And I mean, I wouldn't care if they got life in prison. I really wouldn't. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.